The sun was setting behind the glass towers of Seoul's Innovation District as Tae Kim gathered his presentation materials. The aerospace conference had gone well. His propulsion theories had been received with polite interest, though most attendees seemed skeptical of his more ambitious claims. Tae didn't mind. Working at the edges of theoretical physics meant getting used to raised eyebrows. "Your equations on quantum tunneling were quite impressive," said a voice behind him. Tae turned to find a woman he hadn't noticed during his presentation. She wore a simple gray suit, her black hair cut in a neat bob that framed a face with delicate features. Something about her eyes seemed unusual, too steady, too focused. "Thanks," he replied, extending his hand. "Tae Kim. And you are?" "Jia," she said, her handshake precise and firm. "Particularly the application to faster-than-light travel, though I believe you've overlooked certain aspects of dimensional folding." Tae stiffened. Those concepts weren't in his public presentation. They were buried in classified research files at the Korean Aerospace Development Institute. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," he said carefully, glancing around the now empty conference room. Jia smiled, a practiced gesture that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Your work on the Horizon project. Phase 3 testing showed promising results last month, didn't it? Until the containment field collapsed." Blood drained from Tae's face. "How could you possibly know that?" "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," she suggested, nodding toward the exit. Against his better judgment, Tae followed her to a small coffee shop across the street. The place was nearly empty, with soft jazz playing. In the background, they took a table in the corner, far from other patrons. "Who are you really?" Tae demanded once they were seated. "Corporate espionage? Foreign intelligence?" Jia placed a small metallic disc on the table between them. "I am not what you think, Tae Kim." The disc hummed slightly, then projected a bubble of distorted air around their table. The jazz music disappeared, replaced by perfect silence. "Privacy. Field," she explained. "No one can hear or clearly see us now." "That's impossible," Tae whispered, reaching toward the edge of the bubble, feeling a slight resistance as his fingers passed through it. "No more impossible than this," Jia said, removing what looked like a smooth pebble from her pocket. She placed it beside the disc and tapped it twice. Above the table, a holographic display bloomed. A star map unlike anything Tae had ever seen. Stars connected by glowing lines, systems he didn't recognize, with strange symbols labeling each point. "This is my home," she said, pointing to a cluster of stars. "Or rather the territory of the Velari Coalition. 12 star systems, 26 inhabited worlds." Tae stared at the map, then at Jia. "This is an elaborate hoax." "Is it?" she asked. Then she did something strange. She touched her temple and her face shifted. The change was subtle. Her eyes grew slightly larger, their irises taking on an unusual violet hue. The structure of her cheekbones became more pronounced, her skin tone shifting to a pale lavender tint with barely perceptible patterns beneath the surface. "What I'm showing you now is a compromise," she explained, her voice slightly different, more melodic with unusual harmonics. "My true form would be difficult for you to process without preparation." Tae knocked over his coffee cup. He barely noticed the liquid spreading across the table as he stared at Jia's transformed face. This couldn't be makeup or special effects. It was happening before his eyes, the changes flowing like water. "You're not human," he said, stating the obvious in his shock. "No," she agreed, reverting to her human appearance with another touch to her temple. "I am Velari. I've been on Earth for 7 years studying your species, studying you specifically." Tae felt dizzy. "Why me?" "Your work," Jia said, deactivating the holographic display. "Your theories on propulsion. They're remarkably similar to principles we mastered centuries ago. Your approach is different, though, innovative in ways we hadn't considered." Tae tried to process what was happening, an alien. He was talking to an actual alien disguised as a human in a coffee shop in Seoul. The implications were staggering. "Are there others like you here?" he asked, his scientist's mind already racing with questions. A few observers, yes. We maintain. Distance typically. Direct contact is unusual. Then why reveal yourself to me? Gia's expression grew serious. Because we need you, take him. And because I'm authorized to offer you something no human has ever been offered before. She leaned forward, her two steady eyes fixed on his. The choice to leave Earth behind and join us among the stars, ease. Heart hammered in his chest as everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe crumbled around him. Whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same. Tae stared at his untouched bowl of jjajangmyeon, appetite gone. 2 days had passed since his shocking encounter with Gia at the coffee shop. They'd agreed to meet again, giving him time to process the revelation that humans weren't alone in the universe. Now they sat in a small restaurant in a quiet neighborhood, far from the Aerospace Institute where Tai worked. You haven't eaten, Gia observed, her chopsticks poised perfectly between her fingers. She'd ordered the same dish but barely touched it. Another small detail that seemed off. She mimicked human behaviors without fully committing to them. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this, Tae said, pushing his bowl aside. Why me? There must be thousands of scientists more qualified. Gia tilted her head slightly. You're asking the wrong question. It's not about qualifications, it's about perspective. She glanced around the restaurant, then slipped the privacy disc onto the table between them. The familiar bubble of silence enveloped them, the chatter from nearby tables fading to nothing. The Velari Coalition has been monitoring Earth for over 60 years, she explained. At first, we were simply cataloging another developing world, but your species proved unusual. Unusual how? Your adaptability is remarkable. Most species follow predictable evolutionary paths. Humans constantly reinvent yourselves. She leaned forward. In the last century alone, you've advanced from basic flight to landing on your moon, from vacuum tubes to quantum computing. That's just technological progress, Tae said with a shrug. It's more than that. Your minds work differently. You make intuitive leaps that our scientists find fascinating. She smiled slightly. We're an old civilization, Tae, over 12,000 years by your counting, and old civilizations can become rigid in their thinking. Tae considered this. So, you want fresh ideas? You could just steal our research. Why approach me directly? We've observed your work for 3 years. Your propulsion theories contain elements our scientists overlooked for centuries. You think around problems instead of through them. She tapped her fingers on the table. And stealing, as you put it, isn't our way. We believe in exchange. What exactly are you offering me? Tae asked, leaning forward. A place among us. Full citizenship in the Velari Coalition. Access to knowledge and technology your people won't develop for centuries. The implications staggered him. You want me to leave Earth? For good? Gia nodded. That's the condition. Our protocols regarding developing worlds are strict. If you choose to join us, you can never return to Earth or contact anyone here again. That's a steep price, Tae whispered. I understand what I'm asking you. To give up, she said. Her voice softened with what seemed like genuine empathy. Family, friends, your home, your entire identity. Why such harsh terms? Gia's expression grew serious. History. We've learned through bitter experience that premature technological advancement often leads to self-destruction. Your species is already dangerously close to several tipping points. She pulled out another device, smaller than the privacy disc. When she activated it, a 3-dimensional hologram appeared between them, a perfect model of Tae's apartment, down to the coffee mug he'd left on the counter that morning. We could share our technology with your governments, she said, manipulating the hologram to zoom out, showing his building, then the neighborhood, the city, eventually the entire Earth. But what would happen? Your nations would weaponize it. The power imbalances would trigger conflicts. We've run the simulations thousands of times. The outcomes are rarely favorable. Tae wanted to argue but couldn't. Even his own research institute had military contracts. So instead you pick individuals to, what? Join your alien society? How many humans have you taken? You would be the first, Gia admitted. A trial. If successful, perhaps others would follow. A gradual integration. Tay ran his hands through his hair. And what would I do there? Be some kind of zoo exhibit? No, Gia said firmly. You would work alongside our scientists. Your perspective could help solve problems we've struggled with for generations. Like what? Gia hesitated. I'm not authorized to share specific details yet, but I can tell you that your work would benefit billions of lives across multiple worlds. She deactivated the hologram and leaned back, studying his face. I understand. Your skepticism. You need proof. Damn right I do, Tay said, finding his voice again. For all I know, this is some elaborate psychological experiment. Fair enough. Gia stood up. Tomorrow night. I'll show you something that will remove all doubt. After that, you'll have 1 week to decide. And if I say no, then we part ways. Your memory of me remains, but no one would believe you without evidence. Life continues as before. And if I try to tell people anyway? Gia's expression didn't change. We've existed alongside your civilization for millennia without detection, Tay. What does that tell you about our capabilities? The threat was subtle but clear. 1 week seems awfully short to decide the rest of my life, he said. It has to be. My presence here increases the risk of detection with each passing day. She deactivated the privacy field. Meet me at Haniel Park tomorrow at midnight. Come alone. She stood to leave, then paused. And Tay? Try to sleep. The path ahead will be difficult, regardless of your choice. After she was gone, Tay stared at his cold noodles, wondering if his life had just become the most important fork in human history, or if he was simply losing his mind. The midnight air at Haniel Park carried the scent of wild grass and distant rain. Tay checked his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. He'd arrived early, heart pounding with equal parts excitement and fear. The sprawling park was empty at this hour, moonlight washing over the rolling hills that had once been a landfill, decades ago. You came. Gia's voice startled him. She appeared from behind a stand of tall grass wearing a dark jacket that seemed to absorb the moonlight. I still don't know if I'm being incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, Tay admitted. Gia smiled. A genuine expression this time, not the practiced gesture he'd seen before. The line between those is often thin. She gestured toward a path leading up one of the park's hills. Follow me. They climbed in silence until reaching the summit. The city sprawled before them, Sol's lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Beautiful, Gia said, her gaze sweeping across the panorama. Each light representing lives, dreams, connections. Is that why you chose this spot? For the view? Partially. She removed a small metallic cube from her pocket. And partially because we need open sky. She placed the cube on the ground and stepped back. It hummed softly, then projected a beam of light upward. The beam widened, forming a cylinder of shimmering air about 3 meters wide. Step inside, she invited. Tay hesitated, then stepped into the cylinder beside her. The air felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. Look up, Gia whispered. The night sky above them shifted. Stars blurred, then rearranged themselves into unfamiliar constellations. The moon disappeared. Suddenly they were looking at a completely different sky. This is a direct feed from my homeworld, Vale Prime, Gia explained. Real time. Tay gasped as 3 moons rose into view, one large and amber-colored, 2 smaller ones gleaming silver against the alien sky. Far in the distance, a ribbon of light curved across the horizon like a luminous bridge. What is that? He asked, pointing to the ribbon. The Shimmer Ring, a habitat structure housing 60 million citizens. The image shifted downward, revealing a cityscape that defied comprehension. Towers of impossible height and geometry, connected by translucent bridges that glowed from within. Vehicles moved in 3-dimensional traffic patterns, flowing like schools of fish. Parks floated like islands in the sky, tethered to the ground by slender columns. "This is real?" Tay whispered, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "As real as Seoul," Gia confirmed. "This is where I was born, 326 Earth years ago." Tay turned to her, shocked. "You're over 3 centuries old? Young by Velari standards. Our biological engineering extended natural lifespans centuries ago." She gestured at the city below. "This is what post-scarcity looks like, Tay. No one lacks for food, shelter, education, or purpose." The image shifted again, showing laboratories where beings that looked similar to Gia worked with equipment Tay couldn't begin to understand. Some appeared more humanoid, others decidedly not. "The coalition isn't just Velari," Gia explained. "We've integrated 12 sentient species over millennia, each bringing unique perspectives. And you want humans to be the 13th. Tai said, understanding dawning. Eventually, starting with you." The projection faded, returning them to the familiar soul night sky. Tay felt dizzy with the implications. "I need to sit down," he said, finding a nearby bench. Gia joined him, giving him space to process. "Questions?" "A million," he laughed shakily. "But let's start with the obvious. Why does such an advanced civilization need a human scientist? What could I possibly offer that you don't already have?" Gia looked at her hands. "Progress isn't linear, Tay. Advanced doesn't mean perfect. We've hit walls in certain areas of development." "Like what?" "Like your specialty, dimensional physics. Our approach has been too orthodox. We need outside perspective." Tay shook his head in disbelief. "This is a lot to take in." "I know." She touched his arm gently, the first time she'd initiated physical contact. "That's why I'm giving you time to decide." Over the next 5 days, they met in increasingly secure locations. Gia showed him more glimpses of Velari technology and society, medical advances that could cure any human disease, energy systems that drew power from subspace, educational techniques that could impart years of knowledge in weeks. In turn, Tai shared more about himself, his childhood in Busan, his parents' sacrifice to fund his education, his broken engagement to a woman who couldn't understand his devotion to theoretical physics. "Don't you have family wondering where you are?" he asked Gia one evening as they sat in an automated car circling the outskirts of the city, another secure location. "We don't form family units like humans do," she explained. "Children are communally raised. But yes, I have connections. Colleagues, friends, my research cluster. They understand the isolation of fieldwork." As fascinating as the alien technology was, Tay found himself equally intrigued by Gia herself. Despite her otherworldly origin, there was something deeply genuine about her curiosity, her careful observations of human behavior. "You're staring again," she noted, catching his gaze. "Sorry," he said, embarrassed. "It's just, sometimes I forget you're not human, and other times it's so obvious." "Which is it right now?" "Both," he admitted. She smiled, those increasingly natural smiles that transformed her face. "That's a very human answer." On the 6th day, everything changed. Tay arrived at work to find 2 men in suits waiting in his office. "Dr. Kim," the older one said, "National Intelligence Service. We'd like to ask you some questions about a woman you've been meeting." Ice formed in Tay's stomach. They knew about Gia. "Just routine security checks," the younger agent added with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Given your clearance level." The message from Gia came hours later, after an uncomfortable interrogation. "We've been compromised. Meet at backup. Location. Final decision time." As Tay hurried through the rainy evening streets, he realized the choice before him was no longer theoretical. It was immediate and irreversible. His world or hers. Rain pelted the windows of the bullet train as it raced northward through the night. Tay kept his cap pulled low, checking the reflection in the window for any sign of pursuit. The backup location had turned out to be a remote mountain cabin near the Seoraksan National Park, far from Seoul's surveillance networks. His phone buzzed, his department head asking where he'd disappeared to. Tay switched it off. The intelligence agents had been polite but thorough, asking pointed questions about the foreign woman he'd been meeting. They knew more than they should have. 3 hours later, soaked from the half-kilometer hike from the nearest station, Tay knocked on the cabin door. It swung open immediately. "You weren't followed?" Gia asked, ushering him inside. The cabin was simple: wooden walls, basic furniture, a fire crackling in the stone hearth. Not where you'd expect to find an alien ambassador. "I don't think so," Tay said, removing his wet jacket. "But the NIS questioned me today. They know about you, or at least they know about someone." Gia nodded grimly. "They've been tracking us for the past 2 days. Our security protocols were breached." "How? I thought your technology was beyond anything we have." "Hubris," she admitted, gesturing for him to sit by the fire. "I underestimated your surveillance capabilities. Your intelligence agencies are more advanced than our briefings suggested." Tay warmed his hands by the flames. "What happens now?" "Now I tell you everything," Gia said, her voice heavy with resignation. "The full truth about why I approached you." She closed the curtains, then activated her privacy field. The familiar bubble of silence surrounded them, but this time she added another device, a small pyramid that projected a holographic display between them. "The Velari coalition is dying, Tay." The hologram showed a complex network of interconnected nodes like a three-dimensional spiderweb. Some nodes glowed bright blue, others pulsed with sickly red hues. "This is our central network, the backbone of our civilization. It connects every system, every world, every aspect of our society." She pointed to the red sections. "And this is what's killing us." "Some kind of computer virus?" Tay asked. "We call it the Cascade. It's not just a virus, it's a fundamental flaw in our computational architecture, a cancer in our network that's spreading, corrupting everything it touches." The hologram shifted to show the spread of the red infection, gradually overtaking the blue. "Our scientists have tried everything to stop it. Nothing works." She looked at him directly. "Because the architecture itself is flawed and it's based on dimensional theories similar to yours." Understanding dawned on Tay. "You need me because I'm approaching the same problem from a completely different angle." "Yes. You're seeing the foundation that we built our civilization on, but with fresh eyes. Eyes that might spot the fatal flaw we've been blind to." "That's why you can't just steal my research," Tay realized. "You need my mind, my way of thinking." "Exactly." Gia's face showed genuine emotion: fear, hope, desperation. "At current projection, the Cascade will reach critical mass in 20 Earth years. When that happens, all 12 systems collapse. Billions die." The weight of it crashed down on Tay. This wasn't just about scientific curiosity or personal advancement. It was about saving an entire civilization. "Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning?" "Protocol," she said simply. "And I needed to evaluate you without this knowledge coloring your reactions." Thunder rumbled outside as Tay processed this new information. "How many people know about this? About your presence on Earth?" "Very few. My mission is classified at the highest levels. If your governments learned about our vulnerability..." She trailed off. "They'd try to exploit it," Tay finished grimly. He stood and paced across the small room. "Speaking of governments, how long until the NIS finds this place?" "Not long. I've detected search algorithms targeting this region. We have hours at most." Tay ran his hands through his hair. "So I need to decide right now? Leave everything behind or stay on Earth?" "Yes." Gia stood too, facing him. "But there's one more thing you should see before you decide." She manipulated the holographic controls, and the display changed to show familiar images. Surveillance footage of military facilities, classified documents, laboratory tests. "What am I looking at?" Tay asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Evidence that your governments have recovered Velari technology before." She pointed to specific images. "A crashed scout ship in Siberia 40 years ago. Components reverse-engineered into military applications rather than used for civilian benefits." Tay felt sick as he recognized some of the technology, including principles suspiciously similar to those he'd been working on. My research. It isn't entirely original, is it? It's based on your technology. Gia nodded sadly. Your intuitive leaps were filling in gaps in stolen knowledge. That's partly why I noticed you. You were reconstructing our science without even knowing it. Who knows about this? Military, intelligence agencies, a few corporate entities, not the public. Tay slumped into his chair. So all this time, while people struggle with energy shortages and climate disasters, they've had technology that could help? The path of least resistance is often toward power, not progress, Gia said quietly. Outside, the rain intensified. Tay stared into the fire, mind racing through implications. If he stayed, his research would likely be weaponized. If he left, he abandoned everyone and everything he'd ever known. How would it work? He asked finally. If I said yes. Gia reached into her pocket and removed what looked like a smooth river stone. This is an extraction beacon. When activated, it creates a dimensional bridge. We step through and we're gone. Just like that? Just like that. No coming back. A distant sound caught their attention. Helicopter rotors cutting through the storm. They've found us, Gia said, deactivating the hologram. Time's up, Tay. What's your answer? The helicopter grew louder as Tay looked around the cabin at this last piece of Earth he might ever see. The choice before him wasn't just about two worlds anymore. It was about which world he could truly help. The helicopter's spotlight swept across the cabin windows as rain hammered against the roof. Tay looked at Gia, her face illuminated by the fire's orange glow, then back at the extraction beacon in her palm. I'll go with you, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. But on one condition. We don't have time for conditions, Gia warned, glancing at the windows. The sound of vehicles approaching echoed through the valley. Make time, Tay insisted. I won't leave Earth defenseless while I help your people. Gia's eyes narrowed. What are you proposing? Tay pointed to the devices she'd used throughout their meetings. Your technology. The basics of it. Clean energy, medical advances, environmental restoration. Things that can't be weaponized easily. I want to leave them behind. That violates every protocol we have about non-interference. And taking me doesn't? Tay challenged. You broke protocol the moment you revealed yourself. Break it once more for the right reasons. Outside car doors slammed. Voices called out commands. They'll be through that door in 60 seconds, Gia said, conflict evident on her face. What you're asking could change Earth's development path. Completely. That's the idea, Tay replied. You showed me how my government keeps alien technology for themselves. I'm not asking for weapons or space travel. Just fundamentals that could help everyone. Gia hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a crystalline cube no larger than a deck of cards. This contains basic Velari knowledge databases, medical techniques, sustainable energy systems, agricultural methods. She activated a holographic interface and rapidly made adjustments. I'm removing anything that could be misused. Is it compatible with Earth technology? It will be now. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls. I'm adding translation matrices and interface protocols. She looked up at him. This is a serious breach of my mission parameters. Footsteps on the porch. A fist pounded on the door. National Intelligence Service. Open up. 20 seconds, Gia warned. Tay took the cube and connected it to his tablet. How do I distribute this so one government can't control it? The network trigger is set, Gia said, still working. Once activated, it will clone and distribute itself across all Earth's connected systems. No one can stop the spread. The door splintered as someone rammed it. Tay's fingers flew across his tablet, setting up the final distribution. Years of research on secure networks had taught him how to cover his tracks. Done, he said, initiating the upload. How long? 3 minutes for full dissemination. The door crashed open. Men in tactical gear poured in, weapons raised. Kim Tae-hwan, step away from the woman, shouted the lead agent. Gia activated the Privacy field, buying them precious seconds. To the agents, they would appear frozen in place, a holographic distortion. They can't hear us, but the field won't hold against physical contact, she explained, pressing the extraction beacon into Tay's hand. 3 minutes is too long. We need to go now. Tay looked at his tablet. Only 12% uploaded. Not yet. One agent approached cautiously, hand outstretched toward the shimmering privacy field. Tay, please, Gia urged. Once they touch the field, it collapses. The agent's fingers were centimeters from the barrier. Now, Gia shouted. Tay pressed the beacon. Light erupted around them. Not the gentle glow of Gia's other devices, but a blinding flash that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. The cabin, the agents, the storm, everything vanished in a swirl of impossible colors. For what felt like both an eternity and an instant, Tay existed everywhere and nowhere. His consciousness stretched across dimensions he couldn't name. Then, abruptly, solidity returned. He fell to his knees, gasping on a smooth floor that seemed to glow from within. The air tasted different, richer somehow, with subtle fragrances he couldn't identify. His ears popped as they adjusted to different atmospheric pressure. First transit is always disorienting, Gia said, helping him to his feet. Your neural pathways need time to reconnect properly. Tay looked up and froze. They stood in a vast circular chamber with walls of living crystal. Beyond transparent ceiling panels loomed the 3 moons he'd seen in Gia's projection. Vale Prime. He had really done it, left Earth behind. The upload, he managed to ask. Did it complete? Gia accessed a control panel that materialized at her touch. Yes. The database is spreading across Earth's networks now. It's done. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by the crushing weight of what he'd left behind. His parents would never know what happened to him. Friends, colleagues, all would wonder. Had he made the right choice? What happens now? He asked, his voice small in the immense chamber. Now you rest, Gia said gently. The transition takes a toll on human physiology. Tomorrow you'll meet the Science Council. And then we work on the cascade problem. Yes, she confirmed, but not alone. You'll have the Coalition's best minds working alongside you. 5 years passed on Earth. The mysterious data release, quickly named the Tay Protocol after the vanished scientist believed responsible, transformed human society. Clean fusion energy replaced fossil fuels. Medical nanites eradicated diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Atmospheric scrubbers began reversing climate damage. Conspiracy theories flourished about Tay's disappearance. Some claimed government assassination, others alien abduction. The truth remained just out of reach, despite leaked NIS reports of a blinding light and dimensional anomaly. Galaxies away, Tay stood before the Coalition Assembly, exhausted but triumphant. 3 years of relentless work had produced results. The Cascade's advance had slowed, then stopped, finally beginning to recede. The dimensional realignment is holding, he reported to the gathered representatives of 12 worlds. The network architecture is rebuilding itself with the new safeguards in place. Afterward, Gia found him on an observation deck staring at the stars. You saved billions of lives, she said, joining him at the railing. We did, he corrected. Your people and mine working together. Do you regret your choice? She asked. The question she'd never dared ask before. Tay was quiet for a long moment. I miss Earth, I always will. He turned to face the spectacular alien cityscape spread before them. But sometimes the hardest choice is the right one. I found my purpose across the stars. He smiled faintly, pointing to a barely visible speck of light in the distant constellation. And I left something of myself behind, something better than memories. Not just knowledge, but hope. The ultimate human gift to his world, even as he saved another.